All right, let's get this party started. Let me semi-minimize this. We are going live, and I wish I had a second monitor, but at the moment I do not. I just have this huge 32-inch ultra-wide, or 34-inch ultra-wide, I think it is, by LG. So I'm going to pop this over on the right-hand side. Today, what I'm going to be doing is going over a track breakdown of a song that I made late last year called No Phones. And it's a song I wrote about missing the days. I'm 32 years old, about to be 33, I think. I kind of forget what age I am. About, missing the days before technology. So it was kind of, a romantic song I wrote. And it was around the time when there was a ton of pop trap music coming out, and I was really enjoying riding the wave of that genre. I really like that genre a lot. I like trap a lot in general because of how clean the songs are and how they're mixed. And so I really, really enjoyed listening to that type of music, and I wanted to produce something in my style, or rather from me in that style. So as some of you already know, my alias when I perform and or write music and play with my bandmate Gabby is called City Rain, and I've had that alias for a long time. Check me out on YouTube or Vivo, any of that. The Optimist is kind of my hit song. So anyway, long story short, this was a huge project file. This had up to around, let me go ahead and minimize this, make this better for myself. This had up to around 80 separate tracks, which of course was very CPU intensive and had a lot of really cool vocal stuff in it that I'm really, really proud of that I will talk to you about. So I'm going to break down all the plugins that I use, kind of how I went about making this track, and how it started. So first of all, I'm just going to go ahead and play the sample or play the song and kind of tell you a little bit how it started and how I got to where I was going. obviously,
you get the idea. Obviously, you could hear some major problems as far as it goes. You could hear some major problems as far as it goes. Oopsies.
Check it. Hold on.
Check it. Hold on.
Check. Check, check.
Check.
Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Why is that happening?
Check, 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 check.
All right.
Why is that happening?
Let's reopen the project.
All right.
We got some technical difficulties. That's okay. We're going to move through it. All right. I'm going to open this bad boy back up, and hopefully that doesn't happen this time. All right. Huge project. Okay, cool. We're not having that problem. I have no idea what that happened. Okay, so this track actually started from a sample. And the sample it started from was called song Flashlight by Flashlight called Every Little Beat of My Heart. There it is. So that was actually the original sample right there, which is to say that this track actually did start in Ableton Live. It didn't actually start in Logic. It's something I transferred over. So let's see if I can actually open up both projects at the same time. I'm sure this will probably nuke my computer and the stream, but we'll give it a shot. It was just kind of exciting how it started, and it was a song I found on tracklib.com, which is a resource where you can purchase pre-cleared songs for rates of like $50, $100, or $500, depending on kind of the tier of the sample and I guess how prolific or popular they consider that sample to be. And I was actually going to release it with the sample, and then I kind of went a different direction with the song. But the original song itself did actually again start in Ableton Live, and okay, everything's offline. But this is what it looked like, and it had the original sample with the "Every Little Beat of My Heart" by Flashlight becoming the sample. Let's see if I have anything like bounced down to kind of play that version of it. Let's go back to City Rain, Second Chance, samples, Pro Tools Mix, Final, EQ. Gosh, I don't even know what that is. Backup. Yeah, it's not going to have the samples recorded. Yeah, Every Little Beat of My Heart. Let's see. No. Yeah, nothing in here. But the original song did have the quote-unquote sample in it. And so I decided to take that out. Once I learned that the song was in E minor, I started using different processes to make more music around the song to kind of make up for what the sample was missing. So when the sample went out, I figured out that the song was in, again, E minor, and the relative major of that was G major. And so I found this loop on Splice, and I cut out all the lows in it. And then here I have a slowdown fade, which is a really cool way to kind of intro the song. And this is also the part that happens, the bridge. And for the bass, I use Serum. And obviously I've got a huge filter over top of that. And I've got that deep growling bass. This is a patch that's very easy to design, and I designed right here. So when you put that together with this is our intro. And then using Arcade, which I've showed you in previous videos, I locked that into E minor, and I found this melody guitar. So this comes from Output Sounds Arcade. So together. And then I had these filtered drums. The filtered drums were taken from the verse. And again, right? Put a bandpass filter around them, and then again, this all makes up the intro. So that's how you kind of get this exciting intro. And then this also came from arcade as well. And I had this, key locked into E minor. All right. So once I had that all figured out, oh my gosh, this is happening again. I need to make sure that that's off. There we go. Found it. All right. So once I had that all figured out, I started laying vocals over top of it. And so for the vocals, I was going for a very auto-tuned feel. And so, of course, I used Izotope's Nectar 3, which is an incredible plugin. So this is kind of the first main melody. You've given me a second chance. So I had that locked into G major, and E minor are relative majors and minors of one another. And of course I had the strength of the pitch correction set to 100%. So you've got the first harmony, or just kind of the main melody rather. You've given me a second chance. Copied and pasted that exact same track and processing. And just doubled that up. So you got 1 and 2. You've given me a second chance. Then a third. You've given me a second chance. And then a fourth. You've given me a second chance. And a fifth. You've given me a second. And one more. You've given me a second chance. So you've got low harmonies. You've given me a second chance. And high harmonies. You've given me a second. And higher. You've given me a second. And the original. You've given me. And I think the falsetto. You've given me a second chance. And with all of the pitch correction on it and gating and all that kind of stuff, it just ends up making this really pretty, almost really the strength of the track itself. You've given me a second chance. And so when you go ahead and you put that bass line under that, you've given me a second chance. You've given me a second chance. Right, so that's the song. You've given me a second chance. So then it comes to the drums, right? So with the drums, sometimes I do drums via MIDI in something like Drum Machine Designer, or if you're using Ableton Live, you're obviously going to talk about Drum Rack. But with this, I decided to do it in audio. I wanted, total control over the transients and how those were going to operate. So let's break this down right here. So you have the drums. And in terms of audio drums here, it looks like I just was dealing with the claps and snares. So you've got the trap snares down here. Right? Go ahead and start up. Right, so you have total control over the transients, right? So even though there's reverb on those, that reverb isn't kind of like bleeding out into other things. So then you've got a big clap. So you got layering, and then you've got another clap. So you've got several layers of claps, including a really big one. And you can actually see that I am kind of oscillating between that clap happening and that clap not happening to provide even more interest into the rhythm. So that's that. Okay. Now I've got the exhaust sound, which is kind of like that sound that happens, when a main section drops. That's kind of happens everywhere in hip hop or EDM music, is you have like a big swell, and then kind of the counterpart of that is this big, white noise drop, which you can make, or you can just, use a sample. Then I found this cool little pluck. I'm not really sure exactly what instrument this is. That happened to be in G major, which is kind of a cool sound. So it's in the same key, and it almost acts as a percussive element as well. So I thought that sounded really cool. So all together, all right, you got nice mixture of really dry sounds and sounds that are very wet and reverby. So you have things that are kind of punching through you really close to the listener, and then you have stuff that's a little bit further in the background to kind of create a nice dimensional context. So then for the hats, I did go ahead and use MIDI. So it's just a boutique 808. Right, pretty simple pattern. Nothing special there, right? So then that's where kind of the underbelly of all this stuff comes. So I've got the mixture between the 808 and the top kick here. So I've got just the top kick itself, right? And what you'll notice about that top kick is I rolled off everything below 86 hertz here, right? So that's where the sub or the 808 is going to occupy all of that frequency space. So you've got the 808 itself. And what I did with that is I actually have the 808 playing the bass line, right? So it's not really so much acting as an 808 as it is just a really deep bass line. And I pitch shifted each one. So you can use the inspector for that and anything above Logic 10.4, right? So that first hit is +5 what the original sample was in terms of semitones. Then this is the original +2, right? -2. And so, of course, that's now playing a melody. So you've got that really, really nice sub underbelly of the song mixed with the top kick, right? They don't interfere with each other. They're not muddying each other up. So then you put that together with the rest of the drums and the hats. You got a really nice 4-bar loop, right? So then that's not all. Remember we talked about the beginning, we have this original kind of in between the top kick and the 808. So you've got the 808 being the lowest level of bass, the serum patch being the mid-level of bass, and then the top kick being the top part of the bass. So you've got several layers going on here at the same time. And this makes up the entire, really kind of backing of the entire track that lets the vocals live over top. So if we then go ahead and
second chance. You've given me a second chance. You've given me a second chance.
So now we've got the drums and bass, which are really at the forefront and then a little bit further back in terms of like a panorama and dimension if you're thinking about a 3D room. And then you've got the vocals a little further back from that. So then you need something way, way, way in the background to kind of really bring this entire context together. And that's where you have the guitars that I took from Output Sounds Arcade that really end up in the background.
Second chance. Right. You've given me a second chance.
So that's all the way in the background. And now you've got this kind of emotional vibe with all of these layers of reverb and then stuff that's way drier and in the front, right? So on top of that, I found another patch of guitar that is more rhythmic based.
Second chance. You've given me a second chance.
And on top of that, I have a really cool plugin called Shaper Box. And what this is doing right now is it looks like every fourth. So this would be, 1, 2, 3, 4. The filter is going halfway off and then halfway on. So that's where you're hearing that filter action. Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So you've got that happening. You've got the melody guitar. Right, and then you've got the beat. So you got this really nice groove, and it's a mixture between like really trappy, and then also it's got some kind of funk in there. So you've got a bunch of stuff going on, and then this one as well. And then finally, I really wanted to add kind of an offbeat, kind of reggae dub style skank, just kind of like a with the guitar. So I found this really cool sample on Splice, a one-shot sample that just sounds like this. And by itself, it sounds kind of ugly in terms of the transients and how the reverb's coming off. But when you put it against the beat, it ends up working really well. Alright, so once we start soloing it with everything else, So this is, it sounds fairly simple, I suppose, when you listen to it, but a lot of love and a lot of thought went into kind of creating both the beat in terms of rhythm, the melody in terms of what's actually being played, although obviously a bunch of those are samples. But more than anything, what for me was important about it was creating an emotional vibe just off of a beat, and a lot of that has to do with where you're placing things in context of how close it is to the listener. So drier items with less reverb or less dry wet or room settings, and then items that are further away in the mix by making them more wet or longer decay times with reverb, right? All of that stuff is really, really important when it comes to making sure that you're designing a vibe on purpose, right? That stuff can happen by accident, but more often than not, that's something that you want to be trying to do. And a lot of the times happy accidents, quote unquote, do happen along the way. And that's where you pick up on that stuff and you kind of run with it. So from there, that goes to the verse. And of course, I'm still using Nectar 3 by Izotope, which again is kind of the main thing I'm using for vocals these days. And so I'm using my main voice here.
Well, I know they say we're doomed. We got too much technology. And this world can be
So you hear some really interesting stuff is going on here.
Well, I know they say
Double of my main voice. And then once these vocals come in, I've got these kind of chipmunk versions of my vocals.
Well, I know they say we're doomed. We got too much technology.
And then I put some serious reverb on the end of the first chipmunk here.
We got too much technology.
Saying we got too much technology.
We got too much technology.
And so what I did for that is a really, really cool part of Izotope's Nectar 3, and that's called formant shifting, where it's basically artificially changing how my voice would sound, right? So if I, at 0.394 semitones, if I change that back to just 0.
We got too much technology.
So that's actually how I sang it. We got too much technology. Once you start to pitch shift it or formant shift it.
We got too much technology. We got too much technology.
You get this really kind of cool chipmunk vocal, right? And so now together, you've got this really cool vibe of all these different little voices happening, almost like you're having a conversation with yourself or in a dream.
Well, I know they say we're doomed. We got too much technology. And this world can be so cruel. 'Cause nobody knows which way to go and where to go. You gave me new life, this much is true. Can't turn back the time like I could with you. And I know I see some peace for the little things, for the little things.
Then it goes back to the chorus.
I miss the days when we were young.
Back to the verse / chorus. Then, once I get to this part of the chorus, I add another layer to keep interest. And this came from Output Sounds Exhale. Of course, it's key locked to either E minor or G major. And then we make it into the bridge right here.
You've given me a second chance. You've given me a second chance.
That's what happened. Hold on.
Given me a second chance. You've given me a second chance. You've given me a second chance. You've given me a second chance.
So then, what was first the intro is now the the bridge is this wonderful piano loop from Splice. And I have that repeating. Beautiful loop. Sounds like Ben Folds or something. And I just have the chorus playing over top of that. So pretty simple in terms of song structure. And then this is where I use one of my absolute favorite tactics and one of my favorite things about Logic. So I've got a fade here, obviously, but instead of a regular volume fade, you can right-click on that and make that a slowdown fade, and it's exactly what you think it might be, which is a vinyl type effect. Right? So that's just a really great and cheap trick to use, especially in hip-hop, to get into a new section. I miss the way we used to do. You've given me a second chance. You've given me a second chance. And so, of course, you know, how you keep that interest with something that's as repetitive as this going into the final choruses, you have something new happening from the end of chorus 2 into the bridge, which is this beautiful, ethereal, and way far in the back, adding another layer of dimension. As you have that continue into the final chorus. And that's how you keep the interest. And I forgot, I actually did play guitar on this track. So here is my actual guitar playing, which is terrible. And here you can see the original MIDI, and then what resulted from that. So I had, you know, tons of delay and pitch correction and stuff on it. And that's, again, another layer to kind of keep interest, to make sure that there's something different happening in the final chorus than was the previous chorus. That's how you keep that energy map moving up to kind of have that triumphant finish. So now maybe you can pay attention to that here. With the 808s on the turnaround is the little doom 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 doom, and again that's just achieved by using the transpose feature. And one thing I really like about 808s and audio instead of MIDI is that, you know, you can really control the transients, you know, and so they don't bleed into one another. You can obviously do that in MIDI with making sure you just have one voice or monophonic with a sampler, but I like to do it in audio because, again, I just have total control over the thing. So take a listen to this here. It's a cheap trick, but it sounds great. And then the ending. And I did another slowdown fade here at the end. Kind of a great, you know, easy, cheap ending to do. So in terms of, you know, processing with the rest of this stuff, if you go to the drums, is you know, I have kind of the main drums here. So if I go back here, you know, I have individual processing and EQ on, you know, all this stuff, including the claps, right? I low passed or high passed some of these claps to get some of the information out of the bottom of it, right? And then I'm having them all bust to, you know, one big group. And then on that group, I've got Neutron 2 on here, which is by Izotope as well. And I've got these EQ'd, you know, the entire group, and then compressed. Although it doesn't look like a ton of compression there. Right. So then if we go to our, 808 and top kick group here, I've got the 808, and it doesn't even look like I had much processing on that because it was a nice sample as it was. But I did a little bit of bottom EQ work to kind of make them all fit together. And then with the hats, I have the hats compress. So it's just a nice little happy little group together. They all just sound really good together, which is exciting because that's the most important part of the song, and making sure your bottom end sounds good is really most important. So on the master channel, I've got quite a few things going on. I've got low or a high pass or a low cut around 35 to make sure nothing too rumbly underneath the whole track is happening. And then this is kind of a sign of lazy mixing right here. And so what I mean by that is, on my master channel, I'm cutting out a significant amount, about a dB and a half, a little bit more of upper mids, and that's on the master channel, which means that something is going on across the mix that should have been taken care of before it got to this point. But I did what I did. So if I were to take this off, there's a lot of messy stuff. There's a lot of messy stuff going on in the upper mids. So I had, EQ, another EQ to kind of get out some really specific frequencies. And the reason why I used a linear EQ here on top of this channel EQ is a linear EQ kind of cancels out phase issues when you use multiple EQs. And then I had an Ozone 7 elements on it, which just looks like it's a maximizer. And then on top of the maximizer, I have my absolute favorite plugin, which is Slate Digital's FGX Mastering Limiter, which is really just that. It's a limiter to help you maximize the volume. And, it's not too brutal on the sound. So if I take this off, overall, my mix doesn't sound too bad, and my my gain structure is pretty good because I'm not going over 0, and at times I have 3 or 4 dBs of headroom, except for obviously when the drums come in. So I use the Ozone to kind of get it under control, and then I use the Slate Digital FGX to get the track as loud as I could before hitting a wall where it's just way over compressed or distorting. Obviously it makes a huge, bit of difference, and really the only thing I did was turn up the gain knob. It's really feels like a cheat code, in terms of making it louder without, sacrificing too much. And this track, as far as I'm concerned, at least I think, sounds pretty good across, car, AirPods, studio monitors, et cetera, et cetera. So I was pretty excited about this track. In terms of anything else, other, mixing wise, is, the vocals were pretty hard to mix. And to be honest, if you isolate them by themselves, they sounded a little bit dirty. You can definitely hear from my headphones from recording, much like I'm looking at you right now. You can hear bleed and stuff. Obviously you would want better isolation, maybe some additional gating to make sure only vocals are getting through. But, with everything else that was going on in the track, it was a little bit, easy to hide that kind of stuff. So I was able to do that. So, that's that. This song started from a sample. And again, that resource I was telling you about is called tracklib.com, and actually a student a little while ago told me about tracklib.com. And what tracklib is tracklib is, again, it's an online library where you can find songs. I think we can do Flashlight, Every Little Beat of My Heart. So this is where the song started from, is you can find a song, I think this one, right? So G major, E minor. I miss the days when we were young. I missed it when. So that's originally what I had, and it's a C-class license, so it's $50. So I could have released it as it originally was, but where I ended up taking it was a little bit of a darker, more wistful, kind of sad kind of vibe versus something that's a little more like wistful but happy. Kind of vibe. But it's a really great place to kind of get track ideas started and then maybe change things up, or use the sample and pay the money, if you will. So just real quick to show you something else, I also have an example of a song, if it loads correctly. God, what is it even called? Want You to Know. Date modified. Want You to Know. let's see. This looks like the right one. This is a track I haven't released, and because the sample is so gosh darn expensive, it's $500. It's an A-class license, I believe. And this is a track I'm really proud of. But this started from tracklib.com as well. Let's see if the media connects or if I can't show you this. But I just thought this would be kind of an interesting thing to show you as well. So and obviously you can see it's a big file. Let's see. Didn't THU Slate? That's not good because that's the guitar. I wonder if let's see here.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, so the track's loading, but obviously I don't have the amp on it. So let's try guitar, clean edge. Can I find clean edge? I know you are living here somewhere. Sounds, drums, audio effects. Oh, come on. I know you're around here somewhere. All right, so I'll have to fake it. So let's see here real quick. Amp.
Everybody knows that I'm famous. Everybody knows. You wanna be more than a friend now. More than a friend.
Okay, so cool. That actually doesn't sound too bad. The sample is it also a flashlight? Let's see, where is the sample?
Everybody.
Sample. So it's I'll stay right here. And I have it slowed way down. And I've got it filtered.
Wanna be more than a friend now. More than a friend. And while everybody's sleeping, we'll be talking. You can't have my world if you're gonna be guarded. Everybody knows that I'm famous. Everybody knows. But I want you to know it's the first time I felt this way. And I want you to know that you make me feel okay. 'Cause we can get this before and you know where it goes. 'Cause it isn't anything. So tell me everything's gonna be okay. I wanted you to know that.
All right, and this feels like an older version of the song. But the point is that this was something I used Tracklib to get, and this was the main part. This was the main part of the sample. And I just think it sounds so cool. So I hope to release it at some point. I just can't really afford, $500 right now to drop on a sample. But it was a song I was really, really proud of. This might have been a more recent version of it. But in any case, that was it's really exciting to do that because sometimes you just run out of, inspiration as far as, writing music goes. But, sampling is a really good way to kind of get that information back or get that inspiration back. And whether or not, you're using, something like Output Sounds Arcade to kind of put samples on top of that are royalty free, or whether you replace the sample or leave it in there and pay the money, whatever it is, it's really exciting to do things that way. So, if there's any other kind of project files, you can listen to all my songs here that you want me to break down, or some of the other stuff from my previous Twitch channels, which I'm going to be doing more of, more future-based stuff, more future soul, drum and bass, more EDM-related stuff. I like to talk about that stuff as well. But one of the things that I really want to do here is just kind of break down music education, break down how to make tracks, really, how to produce and, how to make stuff that sounds good, because that's interesting to me. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day. And feel free to hit me up on social media, or feel free to hit me up on Twitch, and subscribe, like, donations if you can. And I'll be doing this for a while now with the quarantine going on. So stay tuned, guys. Have a great day.